I'm Todd Bookman, a reporter at New Hampshire Public Radio. For the last 6 months, I've been thinking a lot about a cat named Sergeant Tibbs, who goes missing, who's then found, and who would land at the center of so much human pain, anger, and confusion.
It's not about the cat anymore. It's just about everything else.
The Final Days of Sergeant Tibbs, a new podcast from NHPR about what we owe our pets and each other. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
If you don't know about our flyer deals on Instacart, this message is for you. Flyer deals are like strolling through your favorite store looking for deals, but instead, you're scrolling on your phone. Because getting delivery doesn't mean you have to miss out on in-store deals, like the creamer that doesn't upset your stomach, or the pasta sauce that you can't not buy when it's on sale. Download the Instacart app, shop flyers, and never miss a deal. Plus, get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a serial killer took to his grave the secrets of the many bodies buried on his property. Decades later, investigators want to know, did he have help? We'll review the series The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Whoa.
And love of my life.
Oh, Jesus.
I
was getting a little worried.
Shit. Hi, Kevin.
It's like when someone wins an Oscar and they go up and then they don't thank their spouse.
Yeah.
Who's sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
You're like, what's up with that, Hillary Swank?
Sorry. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Remember Hillary Swank's husband's name at that time?
Wasn't it Chris Lowe? No, it was not Chad Lowe. Yeah.
Yes, Rob Lowe's less
That's
Rob
what it
Lowe
was.
brother.
Yes, right. The lower low?
The lesser low. Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca. And now ski writer.
Yes, you're on the ski beat.
I'm on the ski beat.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Stranger Rivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling much better than I was last week, that's for sure.
Good. We're happy to have you back, Toby. What can I say? You were very much missed, even though we had two incredible substitutes for you.
I know. I appreciate them stepping into the breach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did.
The breach it is, yes. Do you at all feel worried that you obviously can be replaced at a moment's notice?
I've always known that. I've always had the next man up mentality.
Next man up.
Being from New England. Yeah.
You've
I
all
think
Bill Belichick
it's important to be once in a while reminded that you're not irreplaceable. God knows I know I am.
You just reminded me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's surprising that other people can have opinions on things they watch too.
Yeah.
Incredible. We're not singular in that way. We're not the only ones with opinions.
I know, it's weird.
We are the original true crime review podcast.
I don't think you'd ever find another cat detective to take my place, but I'm sure someone could spout some opinions on.
I'm sure someone's out there, yeah.
So, Kevin, this is Monday's podcast.
It
What's
is.
coming up on Thursday's show?
We're going to be talking about the new podcast from BBC Sounds and Radio 5 Live. It's called Stalked. And I will just point out, there's about 15 podcasts called Stalked. And I had to make sure Toby knew we're on the right one. This is the one from BBC Sound.
Yes, that's the one that it is.
Which one?
Jesus. Stalked.
Stalked?
Stalked. Okay.
Yes.
Toby, listen to the one about broccoli.
That's right.
He thought it was about the wellness industry.
That was
Yeah.
about some kid who climbed up this huge thing and found a giant
James and the
top.
giant broccoli.
Yeah.
Toby and the
exactly.
giant beanstalk.
I'll grind your bones
Oh.
to make my bread.
All right. Well, I think that we should talk about the thing we're going to be talking about, speaking of grinding bones.
I was going to say, speaking of bones.
No, you're right. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Leading off.
I just want to find a why. What goes on in somebody's head that can do that? That's horrific. I do believe in evil. I've seen it.
In the mid-90s, several men vanished from Indianapolis-area gay bars. Police were piqued after a man claimed he was nearly strangled during sex with Herb Baumeister. Investigators found bones throughout the woods of his secluded horse farm, but before they could question him, Baumeister died by suicide in Canada.
I think the police were convinced that Herb Baumeister did this. Now he's dead. Game over.
In 2022, a local coroner renewed the effort to identify victims from the 10,000 bone fragments found on the property. But it revived an unanswered question. How did Baumeister get the bodies of his victims into the woods by himself? And what should we make of the peculiar man who claimed to have escaped being the serial killer's victim?
Let me ask you, what do you think? Am I the evil culprit, the accomplice? I'd like to know how the audience views me.
From ABC News Studios and streaming on Hulu, The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer, looks back at the incomplete story of Herb Baumeister's crimes. It follows those helping victims' families find closure while also diving into the biggest hole of the original investigation. The series builds toward a confrontation with an unreliable narrator many suspect is lying about his involvement in the mystery. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about some of the fairly wacky plot points from the Fox Hollow Murders. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Kevin?
Yes.
This documentary has everything.
This is like a Stefan from Saturday Night Live.
In what way?
You're like, this series has everything. Cadaver dogs, indoor swimming pools, mannequins, audiobook narrators, handlebar mustaches, hot mic moments, a paranormal investigators who suggests red wine pairings like she's a fucking third grade book report.
That was my favorite turn in the whole documentary.
It was a huge turn.
I laughed so hard when we have this weird reenactment scene of this lady selling wine.
I was wondering if you could suggest some wine pairings. We're having steak for dinner.
Oh, sure, absolutely. In fact, right here is a Cabernet.
Oh, I love cabs.
It's bold, and I think you would really enjoy this with your steak. I definitely have felt the presence of evil.
You're really going to enjoy this Cabernet with your steak. And then it's like this interview with her, and it says paranormal investigator on the Chiron. I died. I absolutely died.
Because she predicted what wine would go.
It's the kind of wine recommendation I would make, and I don't drink wine. It's like, it's bold, and I think you'll like it.
With your steak.
With your steak.
Did she work there? Like, why was that the setup?
It's red, and it may work with your spaghetti. I don't know.
It's red, and it's alcoholic.
Clearly, she needs to go to Lars Wine Club, is all I got to say.
Yeah, like, I've learned how to branch out from the old lady Chardonnay. Like, I can drink a Cabernet now, or a Nebbiolo.
Toby in his paranormal UFO podcast, there's a shot of him just like doing his taxes, the whole scene.
Exactly.
Has nothing to do with his role in the documentary at all. It's just like, here's Toby cooking a Blue Apron.
Where's line 23B? Oh, wait, attachment 64F.
Carryover cost. Yeah.
So, Toby, you have your first note. This is a weird documentary. Why is it weird?
Well, I had a range of emotions as we went through this. I thought the first episode was really interesting. It had sort of like Last Call vibes a little bit, but on victims in the gay community, particularly the gay bar scene, although this is in Indianapolis, and sort of the lack of police response. But then the first episode kind of ends, and you're like, okay, is the next episode going to be a completely different story? Because this thing feels like it's been tied up in a bow. And then like the first 20 minutes of the second episode are just interminable. It's all just like talking to this guy who bought the house and claims never to have been into serial killers, although now it seems like he's full bore into it, which made me kind of question whether that was actually the case.
He wrote a book about the case, for fuck's sake.
It's nuts. I'm like, dude, why are you even trying to pretend like you weren't into it? You were just into it and you had the opportunity to buy a serial killer's house. You went for it and now you're making dough off of it, and good for you.
You know why he bought it?
So he could write the book.
No, he said because the house had good bones.
He did say that.
I was like,
and my full name is Grave Robber or something.
Rob Graves.
Yeah, there we
Rob
go.
Graves.
So anyway, there's this 20 minutes. I'm like, my God, we have like another 3 episodes of just like wandering around the house with this guy. And then it takes this crazy turn, which is kind of what sets up the whole rest of the series, which is a really promising and interesting direction. But interspersed with like the interesting stuff are just these moments where it's just like, all right, we're going to spend 4 minutes watching dogs run around the woods.
Yes.
Or let's go back and watch the coroner and the cold case detective sit at a pancake shop and pretend to discuss evidence, like photographic evidence, as though they've never seen it before.
Yeah.
And it's just like, my God, like, why are we doing this? Like, are you trying to fill up time? So it was like this really weird mix of stuff that I thought was pretty compelling, and then stuff that I just thought was mind-numbingly boring. And then some of it was like clearly staged.
Yes.
And in a way that was just so kind of ham-handed and then repetitive.
Yes.
Like they just keep doing it. It's like, I do not believe these guys are just meeting at the pancake place instead of going to this guy's office to sit down into it. And they don't ever seem to have any food. So I don't even know why they're letting them sit there. Anyway, I don't know.
There's even a lingering shot on the line cook and his griddle.
Yeah,
and like all the potatoes. And I'm like, they're literally showing us a long ass shot of that. To the repetitive stuff, how many times did we hear people say, how did he move all those bodies himself? Yeah. And I'm like, dude, have you ever heard of a wheelbarrow? Like there are mechanisms for this kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a giant mystery.
Or it could be a fucking tarp. And the other thing is they made it sound like he was doing it all in one night.
Yeah.
It's like, how could he move 150 bodies in one night? It's like, no. No, he did this over a bunch of years. It's usually 1 or 2 bodies at a time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that big a thing.
It's manageable.
Yes. Yeah. He's also on a tractor. He's also on a farm, which may have a tractor. I mean, certainly he has a wheelbarrow. Laura, one detail.
Those are pull horses, right?
Yeah. One thing, Laura, by the way, if we are laughing, just let's make it clear we're not laughing at the many victims of this person. We are laughing at the media created about the person.
Yes.
Laura, speaking of things that are weird.
Yes.
Let's talk about somebody who stages mannequins all over their home, especially by their pool. Thoughts?
That was creepy as fuck. There's a lot of repetitive stuff in this. I'm like, blah, blah, boring. But then I'm like, what is happening with the creepy mannequins? And they're not just like regular mannequins. They look different to me than the average mannequin. And I'm thinking like, can you imagine just like going to a party at that guy's house and walking out to his pool and like all these mannequins are just around? Like, where does he get them? Why? Like, does his wife?
He gets them for the thrift store and then he brings them home and then fucks them. Obviously.
But his wife didn't think that was bizarre. Like, oh, he's got all these mannequins out there. Like, what's going on? Like, we watch so much true crime media and it takes a lot for me to go, huh? And that's every time they like fan into that pool and do a shot, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So Kevin, you also had some thoughts about episode 2 of this series, right?
Yeah, I mean, it almost goes completely off the rails.
Almost.
For me, almost, right? Because they really could have ended up playing not only this, but the entire series for laughs, right? Or if not for laughs, for like gleaning into the super quirkiness of all this stuff. I mean, mannequins, and so instead of like
paranormal investigators.
Yeah, right. Because all of a sudden we get to the the guy's name is Rob Graves, and then we get these paranormal investigators who don't know how to hold a camera steady, and the guy's walking around without his socks on. Right. It just ends up being like super weird. But it needs to be included because it sets up, legitimately where the investigation goes by bringing in Mark Goodyear, right? This was the guy who apparently went to the police for the first time, the one and only time, we think, and narked on this guy and sort of like pushed him in that direction. And instead of just like using him as a regular witness and source for the serial killer story, he really starts like making a suspect of himself with his peculiar behavior, his histrionics and all this stuff. But like without the paranormal investigator and the guy who bought the house, like, do we get there? Probably not. But again, you know, it's like if Dan Taberski were doing this, like all of a sudden there's a weird like handle to grab onto to change the story. But for me, we moved beyond that into what I thought was super compelling. Episode 1, I agree completely with Toby. I like where it went after that, and that didn't kill it for me.
Laura, would you ever buy this house? I mean, it is a horse property. To be fair.
Yeah.
It apparently came at a steep discount.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful old stone Tudor home that happened to have a giant burn pile of bodies behind it at one point. Would you buy this house? Yes or no?
No. All I could think as I was watching this is I'm like, okay, it's like Kentucky. It's like Sheila LaBar's house on steroids. Now, she was our local suspected serial killer woman who had a farm that was a horse farm in the next town over from me. And I actually went to the auction when they auctioned off her property to get rid of it. And I'm thinking, who would buy this house? There's some bad juju here. Same thing.
Well,
she had
also blood all over the walls.
Well, they took the walls out of that house. Like I actually snuck into the house after the auction was over with my dear friend Jason, reporter Jason, who was mortified that I made him do this. But they had taken the walls out but that same thing. They had like the burn pile on the front lawn, the victims that had been burned up. But this house, it's a nice property. But I'm thinking, you know, if they're still finding bone fragments now, all these years later out in the woods, like, I don't know, man. I don't think I could get past that, despite the lovely view coming in down the driveway with the fences on both sides and thinking, oh, some horses could go here and frolic.
Yeah, yeah.
But some like future property owner is going to get like a really great deal on that, right?
Yes.
Not as good as the deal you get when you join us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/partners in crime media. We have over 750 exclusive episodes.
Wow, we're in the business section full bore now.
I think we have more content than Peacock.
Oh,
I mean, Peacock doesn't have a whole lot,
we
but I
probably
think
have more
we have more
subscribers
original.
than Peacock as well.
Too. Hey, the dozens of people on
That's
Peacock.
some heady claim.
That's right. So you can support us starting at $5 a month. You'll get
so
all
much.
sorts of great stuff, including the Crime Writers on After Show. On this week's After Show, we're going to have a download with Toby and find out all about his sick day or his sick week.
Oh, his Ferris Bueller's Day Off
Lord.
situation.
That's not going to be very interesting.
You also could get more Toby Ball with Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. The latest book that Toby covers is called Murder in the Bayou. I'll tell you this in a minute, what's coming up next. We also have the Rebecca Lavoie Readathon.
Yes, we do.
Looking at the Karen Reed case, and last week, the final hearings before the new trial.
Not final.
No?
Semi-final.
Semi-final? All right. Rebecca's got all of it, including advice for you and your relationships and your parenting and your job in the Married With podcast, where I read listener questions and Rebecca gives all of her hot takes and then tells me about why my takes are wrong. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
And if you join us at the Bricker scale level, you'll get another exclusive podcast. It's Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. And Laura, her last adventure, she went out and put tennis rackets on her feet.
Yeah, and I need some better tennis rackets than the ones I had because I was racing with them through the snow in a vineyard, and I did not win the race. That's a spoiler, but the journey was worth it, and you can hear all about this adventure.
The journey was inside you all along.
It was there. I felt when I got done, I was like, I can do anything now.
You just had to tap your heels 3 times.
She's been home the whole
breaking
time.
your ankles the whole time. And you were there, Toby Ball, with all of your friends at the deep diver level while they're watching you and your next guests talk about the upcoming book. I have written down here, Eden Undone. Tell me about that book and those guests.
So it's about a pre-World War II, I think they were Germans, went to the Galapagos and tried to set up this tiny little like kind of colony. I think there's like only like 5 or 6 people, but it ended up being like there's a lot of sex and murder and stuff.
Ooh,
as much
sex.
as you can imagine among 6 people, I guess. Anyway, that's what
It's bound to happen.
I'd heard about this because my niece went to the Galapagos and somehow this thing came up. I was like, oh, this sounds pretty interesting. So when I was putting together the book list, I saw this and thought it might be a good change of pace from the usual. So joining me on April 1st, no joke, will be Allison Horrocks, who's been on a bunch of times. She's actually a national park ranger. and the host of the American Girl podcast, Kate Tuttle, who's also been on quite a few times, Bridget Keown, and Suzanne Rico.
Wow.
Fantastic. And look, if you haven't joined us on Patreon yet, you know what you can do? You can listen to previews for free. Usually you have like 3 minutes or 5 minutes where you can just listen in and decide, okay, I've had enough. Or you can decide, hey, maybe joining Patreon is for me, because you also can join 7 days for free.
Yeah.
And just if you don't like it, cancel it. We'll get you the next time. But those are just some ways that you can support us and keep the podcast going by supporting us on Patreon.
Or if, like, for instance, Kevin, if you just want to listen to the readathon, the new episodes, I'm selling them for $3 a piece. So if you just want to check one out, see if you'll like it.
These are really 99-cent episodes, but they don't let us charge less than that. So
that's $3.
I mean,
$3
really,
Chuck. Just like that wine from Trader Joe's.
There you go. $3 Chuck.
That's right. That's right. So pick a nice.
This has got to be better than the wine from Trader Joe's, because that $3 Chuck sucked.
Yeah. Coming from Laura Bricker.
All right, Kevin. Does thus end our business section?
Yeah, thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. Kevin.
Yes.
I hear we have a very exciting sponsor coming up now.
Oh, yeah, it's our good friends from Quince.
My best friends from Quince.
Who can resist the good things in life? I know not you, Rebecca.
Nope.
Well, luxury is enjoyable. It's not always affordable, and that's where Quince comes in. All right, I'm going to throw out the rest of the script.
All right.
You just gave me a very nice gift.
That's right.
And by nice gift, something I didn't ask for. You surprised me with a gift from Quince.
That's right. It's a flannel shirt, but it's not made from flannel. It's made from, like, sweatshirt jersey material. It is so cozy. It looks like a flannel.
Yeah.
Feels like a sweatshirt. You look fantastic, but you feel luxurious and comfortable, and you are gorgeous in that shirt.
Yeah, it's definitely the kind of thing you would expect from Quince, because they offer such a range of high-quality items at prices within reach. In addition to that, you could get things like Mongolian cashmere sweaters for $50.
Sure.
And those washable silk tops and dresses, organic cotton sweaters, and you know what they even have? Jewelry.
And furniture.
I believe I saw gold bars. No, I'm not fooling. I think they have gold. I don't know why. But hey, Quince, you got to do you, right? But if I want a gold bar, I know where I'm getting it.
Or a beautiful sectional.
Yeah.
So give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime. To get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime. So, Kevin, who's the next sponsor for this fine program?
Oh, we're brought to you by HelloFresh.
HelloFresh.
Make deciding what's for dinner a lot easier with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. It's easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week delivered to your door. Plus, HelloFresh's new ready-made meals go from the fridge to your fork in just 3 minutes with all the same high-quality ingredients and restaurant-worthy flavor you can expect from HelloFresh.
Kevin, you know, there's a thing that people say about growing up, right? Growing up is just deciding what you're going to eat over and over and over again.
For the rest of your life,
That's hard, right?
Yes, it is very hard. Well, it can be hard, but it's easier for your family with HelloFresh because they put together great recipes and give you all. It's like they 3D printed these recipes.
Oh, wow.
They just come up and say, here's everything that you need. But sometimes, like, you don't even have enough time to get from one podcast recording to the next.
That's right.
I know a lot of people can relate to that situation.
Absolutely, much less decide what I'm going to eat later.
So these ready-made meals are fantastic. You pop them in the microwave and you've got some wonderful stuff to eat for your family right away.
So get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
HelloFresh Podcast.
One item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
HelloFresh Podcast.
This cold and flu season, Instacart is here to help deliver all of your sick day essentials. Whether you're in prevention mode and need vitamins, hand sanitizer, and that lemon tea your Nana swears by, or you're in healing mode and need medicine, soup, and a lot more tissues. Simply download the Instacart app to get sick day supplies that reinvigorate or relieve delivered in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Excludes restaurant orders. Service fees and terms apply.
So there are a couple memorable scenes in this documentary. One of the most memorable scenes for me is the old tape of Baumeister talking about them drawing road lines over a dead raccoon in the road.
And he came across a dead raccoon on the side of the road. And at the same time, the Department of Transportation was restriping the area.
I said to my son, they're gonna hit that raccoon with a spray gun, and sure enough, they just striped right over its face and neck. Didn't even move it, no effort to, get it out of the way.
WTF with that? I don't know. But obviously, Mark...
It's just part of the weird section.
You did a TV interview about that? That was big enough to be local news? I don't know how that goes. It's like, hey, cameraman, come over here. I got something to show you.
I would have loved to be the producers like, we got to look up, do we have anything in the library on this guy?
Well, our local affiliate has one piece of footage. Shall we screen it? Shall we all screen it together? So obviously the big thing here in the documentary is Mark Goodyear. Toby, is it fair to call him creepy?
Yeah, I think so. Well, there's two things. One is that he's definitely eccentric, which doesn't equal creepy, but he's got mannerisms that kind of set him apart. I hate to sort of label people whose affect is a little different as being creepy, but
doesn't he seem to enjoy being creepy? Isn't that part of it?
But that's also that's how some people who appear creepy but actually aren't kind of deal with it, I think, is just like they have to find some humor in it.
Everything we know about this case comes from you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely what?
Everything you know about this case comes from me. You just said that. I agreed with you by saying the word absolutely. Where are you confused? Okay. I'm sorry.
However, I think there is evidence that he's actually creepy, and I'll just give you the first piece of that evidence, which was that when he was brought over to Baumeister's place, the first time he apparently went over there, he basically slipped Baumeister a Mickey in Baumeister's own house. So he was walking around with knockout drugs on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's just able to toss them in. So this is a guy who goes out to bars with knockout drugs. So that to me is evidence that he is actually creepy and not just an eccentric. Yeah. And then he's also seems slightly surprised that the guy who's interviewing him has never been slipped a Mickey before, because the guy says, oh, did he tell you about it the next morning or something? He's like, you obviously have never been given a knockout drug before because it only lasts for about 45 minutes.
No, he was only out for like 40 minutes. Okay. You've never been drugged, have you? It don't last. Anyway, so no, it only lasts like 40 minutes.
It's like that's not a common occurrence, dude. Like the fact that you walk around with it is unusual.
Like the other thing, I know we don't comment on people's appearances, but I just have to say, I have never seen anybody with teeth as white as this man. And every time
in a pageant, right?
He wasn't, and they were clearly his real teeth because they weren't like perfectly straight like dentures. And I'm like,
but not as white as his socks.
I'm like, I couldn't turn away from his teeth. Every time we talked to him, he'd be like, ha, ha, ha. He'd do like this weird little like, ah. And then you'd be like, just kidding or whatever. And you're like, oh God, those teeth again. Oh my God. I mean, I think honestly, like this whole documentary, like there were parts that dragged, that were repetitive. This last episode with the sit down with him, that could have just been a standalone for me and I would have watched it. He was one of the most bizarre characters I think we've had the chance to watch in this level of detail, just letting him go. And then at the end, when he like walks up the stairs to the lady who lives in now and he's like, they're trying to say I'm a killer.
Oh, Vicky. Vicky, they think I did it.
Good.
They think I did it. My goodness, I'm far too lazy to be a murderer, don't they realize?
Give me a hug. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally want to give you a hug after that. No.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the whole thing with him is he full of shit? Yes or no? I think he is.
I think he's full of shit. I think he was much more involved than he's letting on.
Oh, no. I think he's full of shit in the other way. I think he's full of shit that he was telling lies about being involved because he's a fabulous. That's what I think. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, right. That's really the thought here is that either he's a fabulous or he's a killer. Like if he were the killer or a team of killers, whatever, one question is, well, why would he have stopped killing when Baumeister died? Wouldn't he also be killing? But also, why would he lie to the police in 1996 and so obviously trip himself up about like, I just one time and like I only went there once and then I'm with them for weeks and weeks
and then
and
he
weeks.
was staying at my house when the TV show came on.
I would have
Yeah,
liked
he
to
was
have-
watching it. That was fucked up.
That was a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
In my
all like,
opinion.
he definitely comes off as having like histrionic personality disorder, but he's also aware that he is not a mere witness to the larger story, that people think he fits into it. He's not being ambushed here. He understands sort of where he fits in this lore and kind of leans into it. But maybe he just likes taking his shoes off in people's houses, right?
A lot of people do.
That doesn't mean like he thinks it's holy ground and this
No.
is where he kills people, you know?
People take shoes off in other people's houses all the time. It's
Yeah.
exceedingly common, especially in other parts of the world. Only here in the U.S. do we wear shoes inside of our house.
Well, you also got like details wrong that like the homeowner, Rob Graves, I have to say it like that.
Yes.
Rob Graves pointed out, no, that wasn't there. That was over there and whatnot. So he's an unreliable narrator. But is he unreliable because he's an accomplice, or is it because he just wants there to be some mystery about him?
What do you think, Toby?
I don't feel like they give you enough information to really make up your mind about that. And so they'd say things like, you know, like the forest was closer to the house back in 96 than it is now. But they don't talk about like how that might affect like where Goodyear thought the burn pile was versus where it actually was and stuff like that. The terrain has changed. That's an example of things where I was kind of like, can we account for this? Can you say that they looked to find tire tracks or drag marks or whatever in the woods? Because a lot of this is based on, could he have actually like picked up and walked with or dragged these bodies to where they were? But there's no attempt made to see if that's actually what happened or not. There probably was, but they don't really talk about it. So in terms of being able to draw conclusions about what actually happened and stuff, I don't feel like this documentary gives you enough information that is probably actually available to like try and kind of make up your mind about something. Again, it's sort of a vibes thing. It's like, yeah, this guy is super weird. At the very least, he's got sort of this morbid imagination about things, and he drops like these weird little hints. Like when they say, you know, do you think that Baumeister killed himself? He's like, oh, I'm not going to go there. You know, I don't want to do 25 years. It's like, okay, so you'd be implicating yourself if you did say what you thought. And he says, well, he had these little fat sausage fingers. He wouldn't have been able to pull the trigger. It's like, dude, I don't know what to make of that, you know, but again, there's like
a lot of mafia dudes have fat sausage fingers and they're able to pull the trigger just fine.
Yeah, there's no follow up on that. Like that's the kind of thing where it seems like you'd like look at the coroner's reports. Like, did he have fat sausage fingers? Like, could he have pulled the trigger? Like,
I don't know much about gun manufacturers, but I think they account for that.
For the fat
Most
sausage
guns
fingers?
are one size fits all fingers.
Yeah, you don't have to get like a special sausage edition of the
special sausage
You have to
edition.
get an adapter, the sausage adapter.
So anyway, I mean, in the end, like they definitely, and I don't know if it's for legal reasons or whatever, like they don't really want to like conclusively point the finger and say like he was involved. But I feel like that's what you're supposed to think.
Yeah.
At the end. And I would say he doesn't do himself any favors.
No.
With all of this. But at the same time, I kind of feel like that's probably the only reason why he even agreed to do this was to kind of fuck with people, because he does say like, I never want to have to do this again. Let's get all the names out. Let's get all the everything out. And then they just constantly show and be like, oh, I'm not going there. We're not doing that one. Like, oh, that's for another time. So I kind of feel like he was using the filmmakers to whatever strange sort of purpose he wanted to do. But in the end, do I think he was involved in all these murders? I don't think so. The only person, I guess, Leroy or Leroy, I guess is maybe we should pronounce
That
it.
was really interesting, though. How they like coached the producer through asking that question.
Like, what would you ask?
I would start by asking him if he knows this guy. I mean, and I wouldn't even start necessarily, do you know Leroy? I would say, do you know Dog?
Did you know a guy named Rick Rigney went by Dog?
Rick Dog. That was Goodlet's lover, I guess.
first ask him if he knows this guy. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. He's like, oh, yeah, he has candle parties. He sells candles or whatever. And then it was like, and then ask him, do you know that he saw somebody getting shot out there? And then ask him, P.S., it was you that was there when this person was getting shot, you know? So I thought that was one of the more interesting kind of, I was like, oh, okay. So.
But it didn't work.
But it didn't make, yeah. And then he's like, well, he's not very bright. So, you know.
Yeah.
But do you believe that Mark, if they were going to kill this guy, that he would hold the guy's hands behind his back and stand directly behind him while somebody comes up and shoots him in the stomach or chest?
He's a good shot.
Wouldn't you want to be off to the side or something like that? You know, like, hope that's small caliber with your fat sausage fingers or whatever. But I got to say, look, this all builds up because of the one theory that how could he possibly have done this himself? Got those bodies in the woods. We can't imagine.
Lured all the people.
Yeah, whatever. Now, right. Now, there's a good part of the evidence there where there's some shotgun shells and handcuffs, right? So, did he march him in the woods? That's a really good theory. But remember, we found bones scattered everywhere, right?
We did.
But there's 10,000 like bits of bones, and sure, some of it animals and stuff moved it around. We don't believe there are 10,000 victims, right?
No.
Right. So like the guy whose femur is over here, the jawbone would be way over there. What I wanted to hear was a discussion, or at least touch on it, the possibility that he dismembered the bodies.
Yeah.
Which would account for why some of this victim one's bones are here and there in the other place.
Yeah.
But also accounts for like how he by himself could have moved it. Now, I don't know if you're going to say, well, there's no saw marks on any of the bones or anything like that. There's nothing in the evidence to say that like they were dismembered. But I just wanted them to address that and like just check that box. There's a couple of things like that. Well, Toby said the same thing. There were a couple of like questions like, couldn't we just touch on this or that to satisfy the viewer? And one other thing that I would have liked to have seen is that I would have liked to have seen him be confronted with a direct question. And I wanted to see his answer.
Like what?
Well, I mean, besides, like, why did you lie about this?
Was the sky blue?
Was the sky blue?
Yeah. How did your teeth get so white?
How did your teeth get so white?
But you say, I mean, Toby he pulled up a great one. You're carrying Mickeys around with you.
Yeah.
The Leroy thing is interesting, but there's other things that sort of point to, you know, like, how come you said that you were with this guy for 2 years or whatever when you told the cops this?
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen a little more of that confrontation on screen.
Yeah, and he also wouldn't answer directly the questions about what like his actual relationship was with him. When they asked him about that, he was like, well, I'm not going to, you know, it was like pretty clear they were doing something.
They were having sex, yeah.
But he wouldn't just come out and say that. He had some sort of like riddle answer.
Everything had to be a mystery.
Am I an accomplice? Am I a victim? Am I this? Am I that? I'm like, riddle me this. I don't know.
When somebody talks like openly and like gives all this stuff, then it comes to, well, I don't want to get into that. What they're doing is telling you like, I don't want to say it, but I want you to draw this conclusion.
Think it. Right.
Right. I want you to think it. I'm not trying to avoid it, really. I'm just trying to plant it in your head.
Right.
Without you thinking that I did, but you obviously have.
There's two other things that I thought that at the end I was like, why wasn't this part of it? One is they have this, it was probably a pretty long interview with that bartender.
Mm-hmm.
And so Goodyear says, I followed him all over the place and I'd stand up on a chair and I'd say, don't go home with this guy. He's murdering everybody. And he'd be standing next to me going, nobody's going to believe you. It's like, why don't you ask a bartender, like, did you ever see Mark Goodyear jump up on a chair and start like yelling? Yeah. Like, I mean, maybe you would just say no, but it seems like it would be worth like asking or trying to find out if anybody could remember that happening. That's one. Two is like, what the fuck's going on with the wife?
Yes.
Like, you know, I'm certainly not going to blame her for anything, but I mean, if he really killed like 50 people and he's got a creepy mannequin pool downstairs and he's not even really trying to hide the bodies, he's just dragging them in the woods and burning them. Like, how do you live on a property and it's happening out your back window and not have some kind of clue? And was she like gone that often that he could like
do
these
explain
things?
That?
It's all very strange.
She was hanging out with the horses, Toby.
Mm-hmm. Just doing the horse thing with her kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's like, you know, maybe there's nothing there, but shouldn't you just like kind of address it? Because I can't imagine watching that show and just being like, how does this work? Like, is the wife just like a heavy sleeper? Like, what's going on?
Well, maybe she got roofied. I don't know.
It could be, but that's something. But that's worth like pursuing. You know, that would be.
Is she still alive?
Again, who knows?
Yeah, because that part I was curious about, like what her actual story was here.
Well, are you surprised that they're still finding and there still are like so many remains on this property?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of wild because given the number of bones they found back when this was first discovered, and they gave that comparison, they said it was like the single largest number of bones since, was it like 9/11 or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Second highest amount of human remains.
Remains. And I'm like, holy moly. So for them to go out, like, I was like, oh God, this is like somebody knows something. They're going out with the dogs, the cadaver dogs, and they're going to walk around in the forest and nothing's going to happen. And then like right away, the dog just like alerts. And then the coroner guy's just like, oh yeah, that's a skull fragment. And I'm like, whoa. And it's so close to the surface. Like, I was surprised. You know, I guess depending on the level of like, again, burning and whatever happened prior to the moving, you know, I guess that plays into it. But I was surprised. I was like, all these years later, there's still bone fragments all over the place out there.
But it felt performative to me because, like, in the end, like, honestly, you've got 10,000 remains. You find 3 more in 2022. It's like, I don't know if that advances the case, but I don't know.
Maybe they're just trying to prove something. Kevin, were you hoping for more from that hot mic moment we get with Goodyear?
I don't know. What did you guys say? Yes.
I thought it was, it was
Look,
nothing
I'll
further.
just say, like, I don't remember seeing anybody like Goodyear, a character like him, or to have like this kind of a high stakes interview where someone is really suspected of being a serial killer and a lot's on the line. Maybe Robert Durst in the first Jinx. But since then, I can't really remember anybody kind of like this. So I was riveted with the whole thing. I was hoping something more actionable would come out of it. But then again, he jumps up. He's like, I have to go smoke a cigarette. Yeah. And we're like, oh, he still got his mic on. Like, what is he going to say? And I'm kind of like, well, I think he knew he had the mic on.
He totally knew he had the mic on.
He was still performing, which benefits you well if you are a serial killer accomplice or you just want people to maybe think you are.
I mean, to a certain extent, it's like, what are you supposed to say on a hot mic after you've been grilled about whether you're a serial killer?
You're supposed to say, I killed them all, Toby. Of course I did. That's what you're supposed to say.
I killed them all.
Obviously.
I mean, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? You know, again, that seemed like a tease. And there's no follow-up on it. It just kind of happens and they move on. It's just there. And, if there hadn't been a Jinx, do you think they would have even included it?
Probably not.
I think it's just a callback to something that was better.
This cold and flu season, Instacart is here to help deliver all of your sick day essentials. Whether you're in prevention mode and need vitamins, hand sanitizer, and that lemon tea your Nana swears by, or you're in healing mode and need medicine, soup, and a lot more tissues. Simply download the Instacart app to get sick day supplies that reinvigorate or relieve delivered in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Excludes restaurant orders. Service fees and terms apply.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This season, let your shoes do the talking. Designer Shoe Warehouse is packed with fresh styles that speak to your whole vibe without saying a word. From cool sneakers that look good with everything, to easy sandals you'll want to wear on repeat, DSW has you covered. Find a shoe for every you, from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, New Balance, and more. Head to your DSW store or visit DSW.com today.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Think about the people who inspire you most. Guess what? They don't have all the answers, but they do know how to ask for support when they need it. Therapy is a great way to find that support. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from clinical issues to the stress of everyday life. And it's convenient, too. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out The Fox Hollow Murders? Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for the series, The Fox Hollow Murders?
Yeah, I'm going to go thumbs up on this. There are some issues with it in terms of the pacing and some of the things that happened in earlier episodes, but I hadn't heard about this case. I thought it was a really interesting case, really interesting setting. And the cast of characters that they assembled for this documentary now, many years after this was originally discovered at this farm, was fascinating. And for me, what really made this was the interview that they had with one of the people that was acquainted with the suspected serial killer in this case. And I think it was one of the most bizarre interviews I've seen in quite some time. Like, I just couldn't turn away, waiting to see what happens next. And so for me, like, yeah, there was parts of this that I was like, I don't know if I would have repeated this part or that part in the beginning that were kind of drawn out and sort of staged. But that interview with that person was just so compelling and fascinating to me that it kind of made the whole documentary. So thumbs up.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for The Fox Hollow Murders?
I've been thinking about thumbs up too. I mean, the story is just, it's pretty wild. This could have been so much better. I think is part of it. And, you know, I think they found some things in some themes, and they're not unusual themes, and I don't think it's spoiling anything to talk about sort of police indifference to crimes against gay people back in the 90s. That just kind of get left by the wayside as the thing progresses and you get into more of a examination of a few different people. There's definitely some wild stuff that happens. There's also moments of just absolute freaking nonsensical just tedium, I guess. It's really strange. It feels like three people like got together and they all got to make different parts of it. And then they threw it all together and then you end up with this thing. And like one person was like really, really good. And one person was like pretty good. And the other person just had no freaking clue what they were doing. And they threw it all together. And this is what you end up with.
Just like this podcast.
Yeah. But like the mix of it ends up being like, we've certainly seen worse. The story is wild. They've got some really good footage. So yeah, it's a thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Let me tell you what this series has that other ones usually don't. First of all, the style of the way that this was shot, mostly, it's the most like an actual documentary than anything that the networks have put out. The parts of this are really quiet. It doesn't have a lot of the droning, super melodramatic music, not like really over the top recreations. A lot of it just kind of lets it be, especially that first episode, which I felt like really helped advance the way that this story came off. And a lot of series interject like there's something more to this innuendo when it just ends up being cheap suspense. This doesn't prove that there's something more, but it makes a convincing case that there are reasons to explore that. And that's an accomplishment. Lastly, it brings into focus a very unusual person that is just fascinating to watch and listen to, and lets you think that maybe there is something more about this case that you don't know. And it's definitely one that you will remember for a while. So for me, I'm a thumbs up.
I'm a thumbs sideways for The Fox Hollow Murders. I, like Toby, found it to be all over the place. There were some parts that were so absurd that I literally laughed out loud. And you know, we're talking about a case of like a guy who killed a lot of people and it's pretty somber. And then there are other parts that are really somber and like take itself really seriously. But just the unevenness of it. And I actually found the extended interview with the subject at the end to be very boring and way too long. I don't find him compelling. I thought he was full of shit. So for me, it was just like, oh, great. Got to listen to him lie some more. But that's just my take on it. That being said, I think a lot of people will like this. I just wasn't for me. So yeah, except for the one complete laugh out loud moment with the wine cellar / paranormal investigator, I was not super riveted. So I'm going to give this a thumb sideways. All right, now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call
the crime of the week.
The crime of the week. A Miami-Dade County commissioner wants to rename some local roads in honor of local musicians. Last week, the commission debated on whether to recognize Miami-based artists like Flo Rida, Pitbull, DJ Khaled, and Trick Daddy by rebranding stretches of main thoroughfares after their hit songs. The bill would take Northwest 68th Street between 18th and 19th Avenue and rename it Big Money Baller Street. And 68th Terrace would be Grind With Me Terrace. Other roads would be named Chase Dis Money Street, It's Your Birthday Street, What's My Name Street, Still DeBatis Street, and Welcome to the MIA Terrace. The changes would be largely ceremonial. They'd be added to regular street signs, and no one's legal addresses would change. The commission has often renamed streets after notable citizens, including President Trump and Trayvon Martin. The Miami Herald says debate over the proposal to rename 24 streets after hit songs was surprisingly thoughtful. The measure failed 5-5, but it will come up again at the next meeting. So panel, imagine you get to rename your street after a song. Laura Bricker, what's your new address?
I think I'm going to go with 123, It Might As Well Be Spring by Frank Sinatra.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something like, why don't we get drunk and screw circle?
Oh, that's a better one. I take that. Especially because I live out here in the Granny Village condo semi-retirement area. I think that would be very popular.
That's right. Toby Ball, you get to rename your street after a song. What's your new address?
4, Why Don't We Do It in the Road?
What about you, Kevin? What's our new address?
Well, I want to name it after a Van Halen song because I always wanted to live at 25 Jump Street.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty good. I like it. All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you and learn more about your Granny Village, how can they find you online?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Blue Sky and Instagram.
What about you, Toby? How can you be found online?
At TobyBallNH on Blue Sky.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm everywhere at Kevin P. Flynn.
And I'm everywhere at Reb Lavoie. And the show is everywhere at Crime Writers On. But mostly I encourage you to join our incredible Facebook discussion group. Who knows? You may also be able to sub in for one of us next time one of us is sick. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll get the Crime Writers On After Show, which you can listen to right now. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons. Our editor is the truly great Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also poorly fake our way through recommendations for red wine pairings.
This one tastes good.
It's got a sousance of Edam cheese. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Mark Goodman again, who had been the
Goodyear.
Yeah, Mark Goodman's from MTV, right? Yeah, okay.
I kept putting in Goodrich. I don't know if you guys are too young.
The Goodrich Blimp?
The Goodrich Blimp, yeah.
Oh. Livy's like, I have no idea what you...
Isn't it the Goodyear Blimp?
That was the whole point of the thing.
Don't you remember the commercials?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd be like, look, the Goodrich Blimp, and a guy would look, they'd be like, oh, there's no Goodrich Blimp, and then they'd like run away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But maybe that's how he killed people.
Could be.
Look, it's the Goodrich
Blimp. That's how he moved them.
And he strangled them. Okay.
in crime media. At Designer Shoe Warehouse, we believe that shoes are an important part of, well, everything.
From first steps to first dates, from all-nighters to all-time personal bests.
From building pillow forts to building a life.
For all the big and small moments that make up your whole world, DSW is there. And we've got just the shoes. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love at brag-worthy prices at your DSW store or DSW.com.